All right, good morning and welcome to Section 8 Consulting. Today I'm going to do a few introductions and then we're going to get into HUD's $2.8 billion of funding and we'll talk about that a little bit. As an introduction, I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I work with around 700 to 1,000 clients a year. I help people that are struggling to get a voucher, to find housing, low-income housing, affordable housing, and so on. We've had an excellent reputation, 21 years in business. I think we've got around 8 to 12,000 vouchers for clients over the years, and it does not take 15 years. It just takes a lot of ingenuity and, of course, reading policies, procedures, data manuals, along with other legislation and other factors that go into this. Practice always makes perfect. And just to be clear, I don't do tips and tricks. I actually know what I'm doing. All right, guys. So what I'm going to show you real quick is our lovely photo of Miss Bunch. So HUD announces 2.8 billion in grants for homeless services, and I just want to be clear: this is not just for the homeless. So don't make no mistake. And we're going to discuss the press release. But first, what we're really going to kind of address is who this is going to affect and what could be to potentially gain from it. So those of you out there, let's talk about the structure of HUD and housing authorities, and then we're going to roll into what this does. So the president and Congress decide budgets. They approve it through Congress and so on. Those funds go down to HUD. HUD only has two essential jobs. One, the administration of money to all states. Then the state administers that money to all the different counties. Then the counties administer that fund, of course, by grant. And then that goes down to housing authorities. Housing authorities are not HUD. Okay? HUD only handles the funding. HUD also handles discrimination and other violations of federal law. They do not house you. They do not give you vouchers. That is your local housing authority. The local housing authority has private employees, and they may also have county employees there. So now that we have that distinction, let's talk about those housing authorities and vouchers. This is not about housing authorities. Many of you are unaware of that. There are many types of there's only one voucher, but there's many types of funding under subsection federal code, like you're familiar with Section 811, Section 202, Section 504. There's a lot of subsections out there, and that allows us to look at many different, what most people call different vouchers. And in this case, let's pull in the press release real quick. And I'm also going to go ahead and pull up our time, that way I can keep this video short and concise. Open that up real quick. So at about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So HUD announces 2.8 billion for people experiencing homelessness. You don't necessarily have to be homeless. We utilize vouchers as through continuum of care. So the housing authority is not the only place that gives out vouchers. A lot of you guys make that mistake. A lot of people receive federal funds and they're able to disperse vouchers, not just the housing authority. And so continuum of care has emergency housing vouchers. They have rapid rehousing vouchers, and they have permanent supportive housing vouchers. And you may be under the bridge in a homeless shelter sleeping in your car, but you could also be a month away from being evicted. Maybe you can no longer afford your rent, so you become imminently homeless, or you're experiencing crisis. You can also be a domestic violence survivor, and then your plight of homelessness is temporary. You're bouncing around. Maybe you're low income and didn't plan well. And you're a retiree. So you don't need to be strictly, ideally, the picture of a homeless person in order to be able to utilize this. Now, the critical factor is being here, $2.8 billion is probably the largest amount of money that's been put into this and since the inception of the program. And so, like all federal dollars, we should expect that the federal government will drag their feet a little bit. And of course, when they disperse this, there'll be lots of political arguments and other issues that will cause this to kind of drag along. We all remember the emergency rental funds at that time, early 2022. So we should not expect this to be an immediate impact, but the impact will be very real. That means that a lot of people will be able to utilize the system to get a voucher versus dealing with housing authorities. Guys, if you're struggling with things, let's be very clear about this. I've survived a career of 10 years on YouTube. I'm the number one consultant on Google, okay? There's no distinction of me being number 2 or number 3. I'm hands down the best consultant in the nation when it addresses with anything to do with vouchers and so on. That's a consultant, okay? I don't have any affiliation with HUD or the Housing Authority. I work counterintuitive to them. I'm trying to work with a broke system to make it work for people that can't sleep at night, stressed out, can't get a voucher, or they're relegated to 15 and 20-year waits. There are ways around this stuff if you know enough. Over the years, you think about this, 2 million documents read, policies, procedures, data manuals, legislation, Code of Federal Regulation, Title 24, and all the other subsections out there. And then you look at a composition of thousands of counties, hundreds, if not thousands, of housing authorities, continuum of cares, and subsidy properties, their operations, policies, procedures, and so on. You can bet that you're very concise. You read long enough, you'll start to see that there are gaping holes in the system. Now, will anybody admonish me for actually being able to walk clients through it quicker than the other person? So you have two options in this world these days. You can go down and pull that pen that you bought at the dollar store, fill out your application, hope for the best, but in principle, it doesn't work that way. Sympathy stories, empathy stories, they don't matter to these people. Either you qualify or you don't. And the only way you're going to know that, like, oh, I'm just going to Google it. Well, Google's full of nonsense. Google's not going to teach you anything. They're not going to publish their manuals on that. In fact, one of the bigger purveyors of manuals is Nana McKay. And they hold that under lock and key because they write pretty much the administration and policy manuals for all housing authorities, many of which I have my hands on, along with a combination of hundreds of former and current housing authority employees that have been kind enough to enlighten me as to all of their policies. Okay? Out of sheer anger and frustration, many which have been former directors of major cities have been shared, and I've shared it with news and media. So I would say I have a very concise understanding of the complete system, outside of being the absolute director of HUD itself. So how much do I know? I know I know a lot more than most of the videos. And let's talk about that for a minute. You're going to make a video, right? You're going to watch YouTube, watch that video, right? Here's the deal. You're an expert at fidget spinners one day. You got a PhD in cupcakes the next day. And now you're going to give advice to people. Make a 3-minute video of 5 silly tips and tricks to give advice to people that are desperate. That is 99.9% of all the videos out there. Irrelevant, unimportant, uninformed, and absolutely has no factual basis for which the advice they're giving. Just simply did a random Google search, decided we're going to make a few copper pennies and a few wooden nickels, and now we're going to go give our silly advice in a video on YouTube. That is not what I do. I've in fact made more videos than anybody on YouTube, on the internet, even HUD itself. I think I know what I'm doing. All right, moving on back here. So HUD announced that $2.8 billion for helping the homeless and those experiencing it, those that are imminently homeless, domestic violence survivors, and so on. That being said, one of the things they're going to be doing is they're going to be working and allocating grants to the Continuum of Care program, and that program will allow around 400 continuums of care and around 7,000 providers around the U.S. to be able to quickly and efficiently be able to run applications on people that are facing very serious hardships and give you vouchers. And so, as much as I would love to read the whole press release, most of it's irrelevant. It's self-prepping by the president and so on. I could care less what he's doing. It only matters to me that from now to 6 months, we're going to see this money roll out, and we will use immense efforts to utilize as much as we can to help as many clients as possible get vouchers. And again, you do not need to be the face of homelessness to be able to inject yourself into that system and utilize it fairly and reasonably. I've enjoyed talking with you. You're welcome to look up that press release yourself. It has about 1 or 2 factual lines, and the rest is just fluff. I've enjoyed talking with you today, and I hope you'll have a great day. Bye-bye.